everybody. So as you can tell by this video title, my baby boy is half a year old. He's 6 months old. It's so crazy. In this update, it may not be quite as long as the other ones. We've been really quiet. There's just some venting, I guess, I need to do in this month update. Just some struggles, I guess, that we've had. But I'll go over all of that. So this will be from the dates April 21st through May 20th. And I don't have much to say about the end of April. I didn't write any notes down, so everything just must have been all just hanging around the house, doing normal stuff with baby boy. First note I have is for May 1st. It was a whirlwind of a day for me. I was trying to get my son's NG supplies. We would get his NG feeding tube and syringes, and I was needing like the Duoderm and the Tachoderm, which is the stuff that sticks the NG tube to his face, because the little like medical tape does not work on him for some reason. It just comes straight off. And I was having issues. The company did not want to send his supplies, something to do with my insurance. And so he had one kind of insurance. In the previous video, I think I talked about this. I might not have, but he had an insurance, and the day we brought him home, they terminated it, and they basically denied everything from that point. So he got on a different kind of insurance, and I thought everything was going smoothly. I was waiting for his supplies to come, and I was waiting and waiting, and they never came. I finally called, and they said his insurance switched back to the old insurance, and nobody notified me. And so I was on the phone with insurance half the day and with his supply company the other half the day, which is really hard when you've got two little ones. I've got two babies. I've got an almost 2-year-old, and then I have now a 6-month-old. And trying to be on the phone and talk to someone, also being put on hold for 48 minutes at one point, and also tend to your little ones, and let alone not just that, but also I have housework to do. I have a house I've got to clean. I've got laundry I've got to do. It was just such a mess. Like, there was just not enough hours in the day. And so I found about the insurance switch, and I was trying to get that sorted out. His supply company sent me 1 week's worth of supplies, just on, you know, good faith that insurance would get sorted out. On that Monday, we had a home visit from a registered nurse that works with a company that brings out therapists for my son. If you see me looking down over here, I have my oldest in his bedroom, and I have a baby monitor on, and I'm keeping an eye on him because he's not asleep. So that's what I'm doing here. But so the home visit, she just basically was going over paperwork with me, and I was signing things, and she was typing on her laptop and just talking to me about him, because she hadn't been out since before his major heart surgery and his last urinary tract surgery. If you haven't found out about those, you might want to go back and watch my previous update videos so you kind of know what's going on to this point. The next day, on May 7th, I had a service coordinator from my son's new insurance come out and basically explain things to me. She went over, he is on a special kind of insurance because of all his health issues and his disabilities. And she went over things that he qualifies for, some services he can get for free through the insurance. And she was a really nice lady, and I expressed my frustrations with the supply company not sending his supplies because they were giving me the runaround about the insurance thing. and she said that it should be sorted out, and she gave me a few numbers to call and a few certain people to ask to talk to. Of course, that didn't help out really, but she was very nice. And a few days later, I got on the phone and tried to sort it out again. My insurance company said that their supply company, their incontinence supply company, they have a preferred one, and I wasn't with them. And if I wanted to continue with the company the hospital set me up with, which I did because I had been with them since December, since my baby was not even a month old, that I would have to opt out of this other supply company, this other vendor. And so I did, and then she told me it could take 7 to 10 days before anything could move on further. I called the supply company back to relay this information to them, to give them the information they wanted from my insurance, and let them know that I still need my son's supplies until then. I can't just wait. You know, he's on a feeding tube. And of course, the person that I needed to talk to was on lunch, and I left a message, and they were supposed to call me back. Days go by. They did not call me back. I called back, and I even complained that they didn't call me back, and I left all my info. The woman basically told me that they were still working on it, and she needed to get some orders resent over from his nurses, and his cardiologist and whatnot. And it was just frustrating. And she told me she was going to call me back that day. Did she? No. It's been almost a week now, and she has not. I'm supposed to get on the phone to talk to her today. I don't know if I have time to or not, because they close at 5 o'clock. We will see. But it's just a big mess. On the 13th, I had his occupational therapist come back out, and I love her. She's so sweet. I wish she would just move in. And she's same age as me, and she loves Sullivan, my baby, and he lights up when she enters the room, and she's so good with him. She just, it's just, I guess this is her job. This is what she does. She works with babies, and she does exercises with them, and she plays with them, and she's been very helpful in showing me ways to be interactive with him to help him progress. Because he's still not to the point where he's sitting up unassisted. He's not rolling over. We're trying to work on his head a bit more, and he's getting better, but he's definitely delayed in certain things. She gave me information for an organization that I could possibly also get supplies from, that I could give them a call. I just have to drive to go pick them up. They do not ship. I have yet to call them just because my life's been super busy since then, and I was going to wait and talk to his supply company again and see what's going on, if they were going to do something. If not, then I was going to contact this company, but I haven't needed to yet. On the next day, the 14th, we drove out of town up to the hospital. My son was scheduled to have his stents removed in the morning. So it's a day procedure, a stent removal procedure. We stayed the night in a hotel because we had to be at the hospital early that morning. And I also had to stop feeding him at a certain time, and of course he was not happy about that. When we did get to the hospital on the 15th, the day of his procedure, he was super happy in the morning. He was like, "This is my second home." Until we got to the point where he almost was going to be taken back for the procedure. He was starting to realize how hungry he was. But I got him calm with his pacifier and gave him a kiss on his head. And after, of course, I sign anesthesia, consent, and all the other surgical ifs, ands, and buts, I was very nervous for this procedure, and I think I may just always be nervous for procedures. I don't know when I'm going to be calm. But things went well. We got to go back and see him very shortly. It didn't take very long for this procedure, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at the most. And within about 30-40 minutes, they were bringing me and my husband back to see him. And I did have my toddler with me, so my husband stayed a lot of the time with my toddler until they all took us out of the holding area in recovery to a special room. Then we all were in the room, and we were only there for, I think, maybe 45 minutes before we got discharged. And I didn't mention, we were having issues with the feeding tube, and he, for a week and a half, beginning of May, he would throw up after every feed. And when I got together with his occupational therapist, we kind of brainstormed and tried to troubleshoot what could be causing it, because he's not sick, he's not running a fever. I was like, he could be teething, he's around that age. I honestly think that they're having me feed him too much. I know that might sound crazy to some people, but I feel like I'm feeding him too much, but I'm doing what they're telling me to do. And they were having me mix rice cereal in with his formula. When he had his heart surgery and he was put on the feeding tube, because he was not eating afterwards, he had a swallow study done with a speech therapist, and she relayed to my nurse. I'm glad I never got to talk to her, because I probably would have given her a little bit of mom attitude. Just by the way that the nurse relayed the info to me made me seem like me and her would have had some words. But basically she said my son had a lip tie and a tongue tie, and he needed to only be on formula, that he didn't like the taste of my breast milk, that's why he wasn't eating, and that and what he took by mouth he needed to have mixed with rice cereal. He needed it thicker so he would take it from a bottle. So I completely went one ear out the other with the breast milk comment. I worked hard for my breast milk. It has nutrients in it. I had over 2,000 ounces frozen and ready for him. I was going to use it. And so what we did, I compromised. I did formula with the rice cereal by mouth as much as he would take, and then what he would not take by mouth, we'd have to NG the rest, but I'd NG my breast milk. That way he was getting both. My breast milk was getting used up, and he was still getting what the speech therapist said he needed. Well, when he went in for his stent removal surgery afterwards, I just decided to knock out the rice cereal. Something that the occupational therapist and I had discussed was possibly his NG tube was flowing too fast. It was filling his belly up too fast, and that was making him spit up. And so, because I had tried different things, I had tried warming his milk more. I tried giving it to him cold one time. I tried just room temperature. I tried changing the nipple on the bottles, and nothing was working except for she suggested something to me, because I said I thought I was feeding him too much, too fast. She said about me feeding him in increments. Let him take what he wanted by bottle, and then when I went to NG, give him like 15 ml at a time until he was at his 100 ml mark. And when I would give it to him, give him the 15, wait 5 minutes. Give him 15, wait 5 minutes. Yes, it would take such a long amount of time, but it would give his stomach time to process what was going on. And after I did that, he only spit up once or twice more after that, and then he hasn't spit up at all. He hasn't burped up. He hasn't thrown up, nothing. So I think that was the problem. The 17th. On the 17th, everything was going fine. I was doing feeds. All of a sudden, he pulled his NG tube out. It was still attached to his cheek, still hanging. It was still in the right spot. I mark it with a Sharpie so I know if it's moved, even though I check placement every time before I would feed him. and it was still in the same spot. He had just taken the whole tube out, and I didn't know how he did it because he was swaddled up completely. It was like he just maybe sneezed it out or something. I don't know what happened. But my husband was at work. He still had to be at work for like 4 hours. So I just fed him by mouth until then, and he did good taking it by mouth. He took like, I don't know, I would say 50 or 60 ml. At least half of his feed he took by mouth while I waited for my husband to get home. Once my husband got home, we changed out his NG tube, and everything was fine. I did 3 more feeds in the middle of the night. It was like 4 a.m. Got him up. I would give him his bottle first because once he woke up, he realized he was hungry. He was fussy. He took what he wanted by his bottle. I was getting ready with all his NG supplies. I had my stethoscope on and a syringe with air in it to check placement to make sure I could hear the tube was still in his stomach, even though it looked like it hadn't moved, and the air wouldn't go in. I'd push it and it'd stop, which made me think it was clogged up or kinked somewhere, and I didn't understand it because it worked fine for 3 feeds. So I reached over and I tapped on my husband. I was like, I know you're sleeping. And he said, just feed him by mouth till morning. So once he got up in the morning, we got ready to change his NG tube out, and I couldn't find certain supplies I needed because the company wouldn't send me supplies. I had supplies in a few different places, and I was missing 1 or 2. So we had to run to the grocery store for like essentials. I just fed him by bottle, and he was doing okay. He wasn't taking his full amount, but I was keeping him happy, keeping him comfortable. When we got back home, we put the NG tube in. I think I did 1 or 2 feeds, and everything was fine. We were playing on the bed. My husband was laying down and playing with him, and then he started to get fussy, and I was gonna lift him up. I lifted him up, didn't realize my husband's arm was on part of his NG tube because it hung out like 1.5 feet. These were ridiculously long NG tubes. And it yanked it right out of his nose, ripped the sticky right off of his face, and he starts screaming bloody murder, which I don't think the tube coming out is why he was screaming. It was the tape being ripped off most probably. And of course I start bawling and crying because we had already started feeding him, so I couldn't insert another tube until his stomach was empty again, and I was upset that I hurt him, and we had already had to change this thing out twice in the past 2 days, and I only have 1 NG tube left. It was the 18th at this point, and he hadn't received any supplies this month. My husband said, you know what, let's try something. Let's not put the NG tube back in. And of course that freaked me out. And he says, let me try to get him to eat the rest of his food. He had nearly 2 ounces, and he's got to have a little over 3. And my husband got him to finish his entire 100 ml by mouth, which was a relief for me because that was the most he's had since before his heart surgery in March. And I said, we need to talk to his cardiologist. We need to talk to a doctor. We need to get this okayed. And I told him to message his cardiologist and ask him, how much does my son need to take by mouth for us to not use the NG tube? And my husband came back and said his cardiologist told him, based on his weight, 700 ml a day. That was May 18th. Today is the 20th, and he has not had his NG tube in. So I'm thinking that we've just quit the NG feeding cold turkey. And I'm hoping that he continues to do well, because I hate it. I hate him having it. It's not only just a pain at the house, it's a pain if we go out in public. making sure I remember all the supplies for it, and also just having to do it out in public is awful. And then at home, we get into a routine and I'd be fine, but then if we have to change it out, which we would do it at least once a week, oh, it's just miserable. It's just, I hate having to hold my baby down while he's screaming and turning red, and holding his breath while my husband shoves, you know, a 2-foot tube down his throat, or down his nose and down his throat. I hate it. And I really hope that we're over this hump and we can start just feeding by mouth. Fast forward to today. It is the 20th. He is officially 6 months old, and he had a pediatrician appointment this morning, and he had his second set of vaccinations. He's a little bit behind on vaccinations because of his surgeries. They didn't want him to have them because they would just not work with like all the blood transfusions and whatnot he had at the time. And so he had his 4-month vaccinations today, and he did not like that. He had to take one by mouth, and he had 2 shots in one thigh and 1 shot in the other thigh, and he didn't like that, but he was fine after. He just had a little nap. He's still sitting in his car seat. I did not want to wake him after all of that. And he's due for a feed, so I'm about to get off this video and feed him. But I just wanted to update on his growth and whatnot. His cardiologist was concerned about him losing weight at the hospital on the 15th when he had his stent removed. His stent removal procedure. He was 13 pounds, 8 ounces, so 13 and a half pounds. Today, on the 20th, 5 days later, he's 13 pounds, 11.8 ounces. His pediatrician said today that he thinks pushing and making it 700 is just a little bit too much because nobody eats the same amount every day. Think about you and me. He says, I would be happy if he has between 600 to 700 each day. It can vary day to day. And he said, he's a short little guy. I was excited because he had grown. I thought he was still 22 inches, but he is now 23 inches. So in the past month, he's grown a whole inch. And so I was happy about that. But he said because he's short, for his age and his weight and his length all combined, he's fine. So little man is getting fussy. The only other little notes I had, besides being frustrated with insurance and being frustrated with supply companies not doing their job, we've had a really good month. He's playing a lot more. He's got a few toys that he loves. He absolutely loves his passy this month. And he seems to be acting like he's teething. I don't feel any teeth yet, but he's definitely gumming and wanting to put things in his mouth. And so I think that's what we have to look forward to for month 6. But I just wanted to do this little update video, and I hope everybody had a great month, and I look forward to posting his 7-month next month. He is hungry and wanting mama right now, and so I am going to go and say goodbye to this video. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Hit the notification bell so that way you know when I post, because I don't have a set date or time. Not yet anyway. But I appreciate all of the support and all the prayers for my little guy. I think we're going to have a good 6 months.